Hi everybody, it's Rebecca, Virginia, and today's DIYs were all inspired by items I saw at Michaels and knew I could DIY for much less using Dollar Tree items. If you're new, welcome. I upload videos every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on a future video. Now let's get started with the first DIY. I'm starting off this spring DIY video with a window frame wreath bunny. To create your own faux window and complete this DIY, here are all the supplies that you'll need. To begin this DIY, I am taking 4 of these canvases from the Crafter's Square section of the Dollar Tree, and I'm just ripping off the actual canvases so that we are left with these 4 wood frames. The canvases are really easy to rip off, so you don't need any special tools to remove any of this. Then when I had my 4 wood frames, I began to stain them. So I'm taking the Waverly Stain in Antique and a wet paper towel and just going all the way around our wood frames. And I didn't want to do too much because our wreath is going to be brown, so I don't want a super dark frame, so I'm just lightly putting the wax on and rubbing it in. I played with the idea of using 2 picture frames instead of 4 canvases, but ultimately I went with the canvases, and I'm really happy that I did because the 4 of these put together with some hot glue really gives the illusion of a window, which is exactly what I was going for in this DIY. Then I took the galvanized bunny from a previous Easter sign at the Dollar Tree that I showed earlier in the supplies section, and I absolutely love this galvanized bunny, and I'll definitely be using the wood sign for a future DIY. Then I am taking a wreath. This came in a set of 2, and I'm using the smaller one, and I just hot glued the bunny behind the wreath, and I'm taking some floral picks from the spring collection at the Dollar Tree. I absolutely love the new florals that they came out with this spring, if I haven't said that enough already. So I'm just taking my scissors and cutting off some of the leaves and then sticking them into our wreath. One of the floral picks also came with these little yellow, they kind of look like seeds or flowers, and I thought that added a nice pop of color to kind of break up all of the browns, so I went ahead and cut some of those off and hot glued them into the wreath as well. I hot glued the back of the bunny and the wreath down onto our canvas frames, and then as a final touch to add a bit more of decor to our DIY, I took some burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I made a large bow and hot glued that to the top. If you see burlap ribbon at your Dollar Tree, definitely pick it up. I couldn't find hardly any during the winter, but I've seen quite a bit during the spring, so definitely stock up. And the last part of this DIY was to add a hanger, and I decided to go with jute because I thought it fit the rustic, kind of earthy feel of this DIY, so I went ahead and just hot glued the jute onto the back. The other great thing about this DIY is if you want to make it an interchangeable sign, you can. You just wouldn't hot glue down the bunny and the wreath. You could add some double-sided tape or even a hook that you could hang it on, and then you could change it out for every season and change up the wreath and the little decor in the center. The next DIY is a Bless Our Nest Easel. Here's everything that you need to recreate this project on your own. To begin this DIY, I'm doing some staining and painting. I took my Waverly Wax and Antique and a wet paper towel, and I'm just staining these tumbling tower blocks that are found in the children's toy section of the Dollar Tree. Then I found this dry erase easel in the Crafter's Square section, so anywhere that there is wood, I am using that stain. And I actually originally didn't realize this was a dry erase board. I thought it was a canvas, so to get rid of that shine and create a nice even base, I just used some white chalk paint. This adorable bunny image is from the back preview section of a calendar from the Dollar Tree, and this is going to be the center point of our DIY. And in that little preview picture of our bunny and wreath, You can see that there is a faux shiplap element, so that's why I laid the picture down first so that I could kind of try to follow the lines in the picture. Then I'm just adhering it down with a bit of spray adhesive, again trying to line up those lines, but it didn't have to be perfect because once I put it down, I went over it again with some brown paint and that stippling brush to make everything blend. Once the wax had dried on the tumbling tower blocks, I hot glued 2 to the top and 2 to the bottom of our easel. I didn't like all of the blank space on the sides of our easel, so I took some floral picks from the Dollar Tree and hot glued those down. I also added some Spanish moss from the Crafter's Square section to the bottom of each of our florals. And the longer that I stood looking at it, the more I thought it was a little bit too busy and maybe too much. So I wanted to cut down on some of the florals, so here I am just basically taking all of the florals back off and instead settling for just 2 yellow roses on the ends. I don't plan on hanging this up, but I wanted to make a little tag for the top of our easel using some jute, and then I just hot glued it to the back. I also ended up putting Bless Our Nest onto the easel. But you can always customize this with any saying or phrase of your choosing. Once I saw these vibrant jute carrots at the Dollar Tree, I knew I had to make a DIY with them. Here are the other supplies you'll need to make this. This DIY is super quick and easy. We are first starting off with this shadow box from the Dollar Tree, and originally I planned to use a plaid scrapbooking paper inside, but I thought it was a little bit too busy, so instead I decided to go with this shiplap print. So I just traced it out and then cut it, and then I just used a bit of spray adhesive to adhere everything down onto the backing of our shadow box. I pick up my scrapbooking paper Wendy's for $1 over at Hobby Lobby. Then once that had dried, I am just popping back up the shadow box and I'm about to put it back into its frame. But first, I don't want it to be white on white, so I took some dark brown paint and I'm painting the frame of our shadow box, and then I'm going to put everything back together. I want this DIY to say "Every Bunny Welcome," and if you have good handwriting or no calligraphy, you can go ahead and just write it down, or you can use some of these rub-on transfers for the Dollar Tree, but I went ahead and used some vinyl. With my "Every Bunny Welcome" now adhered down onto my DIY, the last step was to add in my Dollar Tree jute carrots. I absolutely love these and cannot believe that they're from the Dollar Tree. They're such high quality, and I went ahead and put down 3 to make a little carrot bunch. I also love this plaid pastel ribbon, so to create a nice little centerpiece on our middle carrot there, I made a bow and then hot glued it down onto the carrot. Similar to my previous DIY, I really liked the look of a jute loop at the top of the project, so I added that. This is a super quick and easy DIY to bring a bit of Easter decor into your home. Our last DIY may be small, but it brings a bright pop of spring to any tiered tray. Here are the supplies that you'll need to make this. For this spring DIY, I am actually going to be using a Christmas ornament. So the Dollar Tree sold these during Christmas time. They are little, I don't even know what you would call it, a little Christmas door with a wreath on it, and they are ornament sized. So I wanted to turn this into a spring DIY and something you could either put on an Easter egg tree or on a tiered tray. So I started off by sanding off the glitter, and then I just took some white chalk paint and I am covering up all of that red. Then to distress it, I took a bit of brown paint and a stippling brush and just went in and distressed all around the edges and the outside of the door. The original doorknob was a jewel, but instead of using that, I took a fence. This is actually from a Christmas village that I used to have, so I'm keeping with that Christmas theme, and I just cut it off of the fence and I'm painting it brown, and this is going to be our new door handle for our spring door. I'm going to be making a new spring wreath for this door, and I liked that the original door ornament had this wreath form, so I just trimmed it down and then took some sprigs of boxwood and I just hot glued those around the already made wreath form. After my wreath was formed, I wanted to add a little bit of color, so I took some floral picks that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I think these were supposed to be lavender, so I just cut off a couple of pieces and stuck those down into the wreath with some hot glue, and I really liked the pop of purple that it added. To make a faux wood sign for our door, I took a piece of cardstock and just cut out a rectangle shape to make it a sign, and I did take a bit of my Waverly wax paint to stain it brown. Then I wanted to write the saying, "Hello Spring," and to do this, I didn't do anything fancy or use any special writing utensils. I just took a regular pen and wrote out in cursive, "Hello Spring." Once my new door handle was dried, I cut off the top of the fence post with some of my miter shears. I'll link these down below if you guys want to purchase them. And then I just added a bit of hot glue to adhere it to our door. And I did the same thing with the wreath and the sign, just taking a bit of hot glue to place everything down onto the door. One of the final touches on decorating the actual door was to add a small jute bow to the top of our wreath. For the hanger, instead of using my usual jute, I took some green floral wire that I got from the Dollar Tree near the Crafter Square section, and I wanted it to be curly down by the door, so I just wrapped it around a marker to create those spirals, and then I just hooked it through and cut off any of the excess floral wire. And that completes all of our spring DIYs for this video. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep searching, keep creating.